Great to be here on the second day. It's been an amazing conference, right? All right. At least you're not asleep, so that's good. All right, so we've heard a bunch about AI and Web3, and I want to kind of glean a little bit forward beyond what's already here. We've heard a little bit from Alex on what you can do on the developer side, what you can do on the product side. But I want to talk about the kind of the future of work and governance, leveraging AI. So for those who are not familiar, I worked in machine learning space for about 10 years before getting into blockchain and Web3. I worked at Google Research, where I worked across kind of open source project called TensorFlow, machine learning framework, as well as on research for natural language understanding. And if you used Google before, especially before like 2019, the models were built were serving kind of short answers there. And I end up kind of through the work we were doing, because it was actually very non-performant, the models we were using at the time, kind of together with a group of researchers working on Attention is All You Need, the paper that introduced transformers and kind of kickstarted some of the revolution that we're seeing today. I always believed in the idea that AI can become a huge driver for productivity, as well as a tool that kind of changes how computing is done. And so with Alex, we started Near in 2017 as an AI startup. We were teaching machines to code, and we were trying to kind of leapfrog what we're seeing today back in 17. Now, we did not have OpenAI money, so we ended up kind of getting into blockchain through needing ourselves to pay people around the world and realizing there's a huge opportunity there. Now, the innovation is accelerating, right? Because now we kind of have the models which are not just kind of a machine learning model that you need to be a data scientist to understand what to do, but they're actually able to have a natural language interface, right? And this is the first time computing went from requiring a person to actually interpret results, right, to be able to directly interact with society, with media, with legal system and politics. And this means that there will be massive positive impact, right? It means that everybody in the world has access to these tools, but also there will be negative consequences, because now the kind of malicious kind of use of computing is also at scale. And we have Web3 as an open web as a principle to really amplify these positive effects, as well as mitigate some of the negative effects. Niraj talked about kind of the case for open source AI. It's extremely important because a centralized AI is actually an existential threat to our kind of overall society. Regulations that a government is trying to enforce, especially some of the proposed, they don't even make sense. The technology is evolving faster than regulations can do this. The open source, the kind of people outside of a specific country can continue using this thing. And we need something that's proactive, that has community kind of governing the ecosystem. We need something that is auditable and transparent. We need something that has provable inference and way to ensure that the results are coming from the thing they said they're coming from. And that's where the projects like Ritual, projects like a few others that are working in this space are bringing this kind of open source to AI. Now, AI itself needs blockchain. Right now, you have a kind of private company that builds an API and offers it to everyone. And now it becomes a data moat, and it has GDPR concerns. It has all of those different compliance and complications. On the other side, the open source, if you just build a model and you release it, or you do a fine-tuning with expert knowledge, doesn't have a direct business model, right? You just post it out there and everybody using it. Using something like provable inference, you can actually have a marketplace of expert models that are solving specific problems. And whoever built a fundamental model, as well those who did the fine-tuning can receive payment from this through the transaction. You can have data and compute marketplaces. You can have a way to track where the data is coming from and either have a payment system or copyright system that enforces this. You can also have the other side, have the reputation around data and content that's being produced to ensure that it's kind of has the reputation behind whoever posted it, and it's not just generated for malicious use. Now, AI agents are the future of work and finance. AI agents are not just a co-pilot that you're chatting with, but something where you give the description of a task or a mission, and they go and execute it on your behalf or on behalf of kind of broader mission. AI agents cannot go and open a bank account. They cannot transact in traditional system. The only way they can actually interact and manage resources is through blockchain. And the way they can communicate with each other will need a cryptographic verification. And so blockchain is a way that AI agents will be kind of facilitating their transaction and interactions. And they will become more and more kind of active participants in this ecosystem and potentially have way more transactions generated than any people could. They can request work and create trustless contracts between each other to actually facilitate something done for them. And so just to kind of imagine, one step ahead for some project like Near Tasks that I was presenting before is you can have a gigs marketplace where anybody, be that human or an AI agent, can come in and pay some money to do some work, right? And the work can be anything. It can be something that's usually, you ask from AI now, like translate, but also from a person. It can be something where you ask a developer to implement your feature. It can even be something that's done in physical world. And on the other side, there's participants, right, workers that are individual people, but also other AI agents can go and pick up these tasks and execute on them. And you have a verification loop, right, embedded into this marketplace to ensure that they're doing the quality work. So that's kind of, overall framework of future work where, in a way, what jobs we're doing right now are starting to get decomposed into smaller parts. And some parts are done by AI. Some parts need a lot more creativity, a lot more context, a lot more knowledge are done by people. And maybe some verification of the AI work is done by people to ensure that they're doing a correct job. That's kind of the framework that we're going to see more and more in the future. Now, with this, you can actually imagine the AI agents starting to run businesses, right? A lot of the work in running a business is very much in transformation of information. It's about really kind of understanding the financial state, the money flow, the kind of operations of the company, and ensuring everybody has the right context to execute toward the mission and key indicators of this company. And so you can have an AI agent that are actually managing large organizations where you don't have a hierarchical structure, right? You have individuals who are working on different tasks and are provided specific context needed for them within a global idea. And you need blockchain in this case to actually facilitate this, to have authenticated paths and a way to present kind of the results to the stakeholders of this business. Now, stepping one step further, you can think of states, countries, cities as bigger businesses that have a lot more stakeholders, a lot more differentiated needs. And especially digital states like blockchains, like blockchain projects, are the first in line for something like this, for AI augmented and over time AI governance. And we've seen in the past few years, DAOs kind of had their moment where everybody was really excited about how DAOs can coordinate people and resources to do something that is, and where everybody still owns kind of the piece of what they're doing. But the challenge that DAOs had were that they were not hierarchical. They were very flat organizations. And there still needed somebody to coordinate, coalesce information, and provide context to each individual contributor. And this is where AI agent comes in. They can actually have this context, They can know exactly what each individual contributor is really good at and how best to provide them this context to maximize kind of their contribution. And at the same time, provide an overall context to everybody else on what's going on in this organization. And so what we're going to have is, with AI governance, we can actually turn DAOs into truly autonomous organizations, where they actually are running with AI engine at the core, while everybody is contributing toward the common mission and benefiting from the resources and assets that generated with it. Now, I'll just show you a few examples and why it's not a far future, it's possible right now. This is just using ChatGPT, where I just literally wrote the proposal myself. It's not tuned on anything about NEAR or anything specific. And I suggested, hey, what if we implement a ZK privacy pool directly in a token standard, which is indeed an idea that some of the developers in the ecosystem discussing. And imagine you are part of the DAO that needs to decide if you want to fund such project. Well, you may be not familiar with technology, specific technologies here, or in general want to understand what is the negative impact. So you just ask on the proposal itself, what is the negative impact? And it can actually list out all the potential negative effects, as well as how to think about them. Again, this is right now, it doesn't have any of the additional data that we actually have in the ecosystem about how these things work. Imagine all of the discussions that are happening right now in the chats, in work groups, are actually ingested here. So now everybody who is not in those chats can actually have access to this by just asking and getting summary of the information. Now imagine this proposal got passed, and so you want to actually set up next steps and get people involved. And so you can have actually automatically generated tasks directly from the proposal, right? And I actually use like /task as a way to outline each individual task that can be parsed out and created as separate proposals. And so it generates tasks on design research, prototype, security, there was a bunch of individual tasks that needs to be done. You can then open this up for bidding, get people to bid and submit how much would they pay for it, right? Or you can route them for individual contributors that you know are best suited to do this. One step forward from this is you can have a full reinforcement learning agent that actually is interpreting the current state, right, of the ecosystem, looking at the current proposals, understanding the world model, in this case our ecosystem model, trying to predict where how this ecosystem is evolving, and decides on actions of where we're going, right? So this is an agent that's actually starting to act based on the world model it can predict and how this will be evolving, right? It can understand how the key indicators will be evolving, the users, the developers. It can try to start learning from the current activities, what activities have benefited from funding and what things didn't work. And you can actually talk to the world model to understand why it made different decisions. And so it provides a more transparent way to also interact with the decision making, not just a bunch of people voted and you have no idea why this happened. And you can still give it training data, you can still give it inputs. Now, it's not going to happen immediately. There's few different roles that we should start building, right? And so there's actually projects that are trying to do individual roles in the ecosystem, right? For example, developer relations, there's a company that doing some of the work by ingesting all the developer documentation and previous questions that already happened on Stack Overflow and providing a way to respond to questions and provide initial examples to the developers. We have data analysts, right? The min-based example where you can just ask about data on chain and it will provide you the report. There's a really interesting idea to help founders and projects with legal documentation by getting them a first pass on their contracts and actually set up, because it's one of the most painful things in crypto. You can have a founder co-pilot, which Horizon is also playing around with, which helps the founder with all the questions around their startup and starting to augment and be the kind of this advisors that you're looking for when you're just starting. It can be funding partners, I said, that actually starting to try to predict how likely a specific investment or grant, and maybe suggest how to improve that. It can be a chief of staff that is collecting information, thank you, and providing the reports to everyone in the ecosystem about what's going on, but not a generic report that everybody reads, but specifically tailored to you, what you're interested in, and what kind of context you want to know. And obviously, AI models are not perfect, and neither are people. And so what you want is combination of AI models and community oversight that is enabling and ensuring that the model is on the right track. It can veto proposals. It can get more training data to ensure that the model is correct. And you can have Web3 crowdsourcing like near tasks to actually be part of the process in the model itself. And the bold vision, right, that I want to leave you with is the idea of an AI president, right? It's an idea that as we're building this ecosystem, there's no single person that can run it, right? There's no single entity that should run it. It should be fully autonomous, community-owned. But at the same time, we do need an executive power that is able to kind of coalesce information and provide decisions. And the idea is to start working towards this AI president idea, kind of building these parts that we right now have across the ecosystem, and providing kind of us with information and knowledge to get us to this bold vision. So to do that, we need another AI stack, another stack. And so this is Open Web AI stack, right? And we actually had seen, provable decentralized inference project. We have crowdsourcing, and there's like few more pieces that need to be added, like agent framework and AI-enabled DAOs. There's indeed a hackathon project that right now is building AI-enabled DAO using SGX. And finally, decentralized front ends and content reputation that's kind of was started by Eugene as part of the blockchain operating system decentralized front ends. So what should you build, right? This is kind of the bold vision, but it's going to take the whole ecosystem to actually put it together. So there's some ideas, prominence tools, chat to component interface, actions for the AI agents, as we're going to have like an open source system. There's some cool ideas around how you can build a language-based oracle that can answer more sophisticated questions. Obviously, data and compute marketplaces, as well as the roles that I described, and also other roles that you see fit. And so I want to leave you with AI as a core vertical for everyone now, but especially for Near. This is where we started. This is where we always were planning to go. Near Foundation has already been working and continued works with amazing startups in the ecosystem, and you've seen a couple of them presenting here. And if you're building something really interesting, I would like to hear about it. And so use my Twitter DM or Calimero chat, and I would love to hear about your project.